Okay. So the colors are for the sky. I'm going to use Payne's gray, cerulean blue. I have some alizarin crimson here and white. So for the top part, it's a dark kind of scene, night kind of scene. The colors here are really dark. So we're going to try to, we're not going to use the same colors, but something similar. So I'm going to use, and take a number 20 brush. It's a big brush. And I'm going to zoom in a bit. Okay. Let's take some, mostly cerulean blue. And we'll add a bit of Payne's gray in it. It doesn't have to be exactly the same color. So every time you mix, if you need to mix your colors again, and it doesn't turn out to be the same color, it doesn't matter. You can hardly see because the color underneath is the canvas has been primed with the same colors, cerulean blue and Payne's gray.
Okay, so all this stuff to the brush.
And we want to keep those colors on top darker. Let's keep those and then maybe add a touch of white. When we start getting to this side, yeah, just highlight it a bit with a bit of white. Wipe my brush. Yeah, I'm sorry, I have to work fast because it dries. I'm gonna take now. I'll pause in a minute. I'll just do this part and I'll pause. This is cerulean blue and alizarin crimson. And I'm gonna put white with that. I want to see the alizarin crimson or the purple. This is like a gray kind of purple because the alizarin crimson mixed with cerulean gives you that grayish kind of purple. Back to these two, Payne's gray and cerulean, the bottom. So I'm just reflecting whatever I do at the top, I'm reflecting at the bottom here. And that's it. It's, the important part is the top part for now. All right, let's do this part. Same. Cerulean blue and cerulean blue and Payne's gray. Oh, raining. Let's take a bit of white at this point, just a tiny bit. Put it here. Corner of my brush, I'm blending. It's good that this is still wet, so we're good. By the time we do the clouds, we put the clouds, all of this is not going to be important. Okay. So with this, let's work on the clouds now. So with the clouds, I'm adding cadmium red light, cadmium orange, and cadmium yellow light. And I have white here. I'm going to be using these two, the alizarin crimson and cerulean blue for the bottom part of the clouds. And in between, there's a sky part here. I'm going to use that too. So the bottom part of the clouds, it's going to be darker, a little bit darker. In the reference, it looks like a gray. I really am not happy with that gray. I think we should use purple. And to do purple, we're going to use the same purple we've been using. Cerulean blue, alizarin crimson. And we're going to put white in there, because that's the only way to see that purple. Let's put a bit more of the alizarin crimson. Yeah. All right, that's good. Okay. That's a good color because it's going to go darker anyway. So I'm gonna push this over here. Yeah. Clouds usually in this reference, actually, not usually, but in this reference, you see they are smaller in the back and wider, bigger in the front, because that's a perspective. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to go across with this, across this way. And start slowly adding a little bit more of, just a bit of Payne's gray in here. There's no need to try to blend colors. This is, I'm going to put them on top of each other, kind of. Just a tiny bit of Payne's gray, and I'm going to mix it with blue and alizarin down here. It's really interesting with the acrylic, how you have to adjust the color, because eventually it's going to dry darker. So make sure that you know, keep in mind that this is going to dry darker. I'm going to keep everything's kind of no harsh edges. And I'm going to go keep adding cerulean blue, alizarin crimson, white. So the bottom of the clouds is dark, but the higher we go up, the lighter they become. So there's a kind of a in between color that is going to be cerulean blue, alizarin crimson, and white. That's like in between the dark and the orange that we're going to start putting eventually. So I'm putting cerulean blue, alizarin crimson, and white. I'm really not worried about how dark or how light my color is. It doesn't matter at this point. We're going to be overlapping colors together. So that's the whole idea about this painting. Before I move on to any other colors, I'm going to wait for it to dry. Wait for the paint to dry to see how dark or how dark the color is drying. So it's getting really, now at this point here, I'm going to start moving my brush. Instead of doing this, I'm going to be using the corner of my brush and I'm going to push the color around. I'm not blending. This is good. This is a bit more white because it's drying darker and I need that. And with the corner of my brush. So this is white with cerulean blue and alizarin crimson. and I'm doing this really softly because otherwise the color underneath is going to lift. It's still wet. I think it's lifting already. I'm going to let it dry and I'll adjust my values once it's dry because now it's lifting. Okay, so I mixed cerulean blue and alizarin crimson, and I put white in this mixture. So I'm going to do the space between the mountains and the bottom of the clouds. I'm going to do a bit so we can see. Okay, and we're going to be adding some orange in there.
Sorry, Leah, I missed that. Could you repeat the colors again?
Okay, so it's cerulean blue, alizarin crimson, and white.
Okay.
And I'm just going to take a touch of Payne's gray and put it in here while it's still wet, just a bit. Okay. Now, since I'm doing this, I'm going to go down to the bottom part using cerulean blue, Payne's gray, and alizarin. Same 3 colors. And I'm going to do this part. It's okay for this part to be a bit darker than the upper. Than the sky. I'm just kind of preparing the this part for eventually working over it with some reflections. Okay. I'm leaving some of the blue showing through on purpose at the bottom part. The blue that I used to cover the wash that we put in there. All right, I'm not going to touch this. I'm not touching it anymore. That's it, because I'm going to go over with some reflections of the clouds that's happening up here. Right, so I mixed cerulean blue, alizarin crimson, and white. And I'm just going to use this to transition from that strong strong dark.
Is that a listen crimson and white?
Alizarin crimson.
What?
Yeah, alizarin crimson, cerulean blue, and white.
Okay.
That's what we were using before. But I increased the amount of white a bit, a bit more than before. Just a little bit. So I don't want to transition. The only reason I did this is just because I don't want to transition to orange from dark. So I'm putting a bit of light color in between. Okay. Now I can take, let's take orange. And some of that mixture I have here of blue and Payne's gray, just to make my orange, see, just it makes my orange darker. Because the strong color is, you can take just, if you want, just Payne's gray and put it in your orange. Just Payne's gray. We are going to put more of this strong orange or saturated orange later on. This is just the first layer. I'm just placing the clouds with a muted orange. Go across a bit. I'm using just Payne's gray to mute my orange. Payne's gray has a bit of blue, so it works out very well. This is the first layer. We're going to be adding more layers. Right. Wow. Love this orange. So I did the upper part and just down here too. So, working on using the same orange. This is just the first layer. It's like a glazy, not too heavy for now, because we're going to be adding more colors.
Okay, good.
All right. Second layer. We're going to take red, cadmium red light that we have here, orange. And again, I'm going to tone down my colors because we're trying to keep the bright color for the top part. I'm just going to use Payne's gray. It's perfect. More orange than red. So I'm making my orange a bit more red. Okay.
No Payne's gray in that though.
A bit of Payne's gray.
Tiny bit, okay.
Yeah, a little bit of Payne's gray. And then now what I'm doing is I am adding more orange up here. So less of that red. See how it's becoming lighter? Pay attention. I'm going to pay attention to the bottom. Although what I'm going to do is I would probably eventually go back and soften this strong cut between. Maybe not. If I like it, I'll keep it. More orange. So if the orange is not orangey enough, because you see, the more we go up, the lighter this orange becomes. So we'll start adding yellow to the orange. And this is where the bright color is going to be. Yeah, that's perfect. Eventually, we're going to move on to yellow. Let it dry. I don't want to go over it too many times. And now go back to a bit of more orange, the darker one in between, right here. And then switch to yellow again. Now I'm going to switch to yellow and red, so a bit more of a reddish orange. And then put it here. It's good that we're doing this now because by next week it'll be dry, so we can put another layer on top. Right now it looks a bit messy. Let's bring in some of these clouds down a bit with orange and Payne's gray. There's a strong cut between the strong clouds color, the oranges and the grays. So I know it's like kind of like this in the reference. I just find it a bit too strong as far as cut. So I'm using transition, I mean, not cut. So I'm using orange right now and a bit of Payne's gray. I'm going to put some in here. So I'm going to take Payne's gray again, put it in my orange to make it darker, and try to see if I can introduce some of this orange in here with a dry brush. That's better. And also some here. Soft, almost like a glaze. Okay, let's take cerulean and Payne's gray, a bit of the alizarin crimson, or even just alizarin crimson and cerulean. Add white. So I'm putting some purple back on. Over here. I'd like to see a little bit of red in here. It's not a red, it's alizarin crimson with cerulean blue and white, but that red helps with the orange that I'm seeing up here. It's a toned down red. So I don't have a cut, strong cut between the warm colors and the cool colors that I'm using here. All right. Do I need to add, since I'm using bright colors, maybe I need to add a tiny bit of more of the strong orange in here. Oh, wow. Too red. Okay, let's do that. Bring that orange closer to that where the man is sitting, because the man is in dark color silhouette, and if you put orange around him, you will see him better than having a cool color. We'll let it dry, and next week we'll continue. We finish the sky or the clouds, the bright clouds. The rest is easy. Okay. Right, so this is how it looks for this week. Next week, we will refine it a little bit more. Of course, the clouds, one more layer for the clouds, and it will be dry enough to do that. And then we'll continue.